Hello, my name is Donny McNichol of Team Animation, and I'd like to talk to you about the iMAPraxis initiative. Specifically, it is an initiative that's been created with Adrian Dooley of Praxis Framework to look at how to modify the adoption and practice of project, program, portfolio and change management. So, what is the iMAPraxis initiative? A few years ago, I was heavily involved in a professional body, the Association for Project Management, and had the pleasure of chairing the People SIG. And at that time, and in various other pieces of work I was doing, I was always talking about we should be collapsing the people side of project management into the hard process side of project management. We've found a mechanism to do that, which I'm going to explain in the video, and this is all part of research that we're doing. And we believe it's quite an innovative view of the world. So we've got here, it's innovative, disruptive and pioneering. And we believe that it could have a material effect on the project management profession. For the rest of this, I'll just talk about project management rather than repeating program, portfolio and change management. But when I say project, I mean project and project manage, program manager, etc., etc. Just use the word project. And there is a quote there from McKinsey just at the end of this year. Over the past 2 decades, academic insight and real-world experience have demonstrated beyond much doubt that when companies channel their competitive and collateral instincts, embrace diversity, and recognize the need and emotions of their employees, they can reap dividends in performance. We believe that's key. So it's taking the people aspect and applying it into the process and system of what the organization does, and that diversity of people. So the two elements to it that we're bringing them together are, one is the IMA diagnostic, and the other is the Praxis framework. I'm going to describe both of them to you. We've got here rather cheekily saying that 1 + 1 = 3. Well, if only it equal 2. In the projects world, we know about the major issues there are about performance on some projects. So if we were getting the process and people working effectively, we would have 2. In most cases, that people would be delighted with 1 + 1 = 2, not 3. We've therefore kicked off a research project, and there's some actions that you can follow up on as well. We'd love your input to this once you've listened to this, and if it's interested you, then that would be fantastic. Just in this, another view, what we're aiming to try and do is it aims to kind of enhance the ability to implement the benefit project management by understanding how to adapt it, not only in the context of project and programs, but also the people that you work with. So we think it's a very important initiative. So let's just talk about the two parts. I couldn't see a way of doing this project because I needed some way of distinguishing between people that could be used readily with hundreds of thousands of people easily, so somebody could just find that distinction quickly about themselves. And also needed a means of then talking about what those people distinctions would be when it comes to the characteristics of project management. And IMA has provided that from the personal diagnostic and Praxis, which is an integrated framework for the management of programs, projects and portfolios. It's free, it's easily accessible and online, and it's community driven, and it will always be free. You're not able to easily use the materials that are produced by either professional bodies or the Axelos world and so on, because quite rightly it is copyrighted and they don't want you taking large chunks of it and modifying it on and making that publicly available. So these two aspects, the free IMA and the free accessible Praxis framework, have allowed us to make this initiative possible. So let's just talk about the people side first of all. We are all unique. As a project manager, we do things differently, we think differently, we communicate differently. And if you look at those 4 tree trunks, you can see that from an outside point, if those cross sections through the tree trunks, you can see we all would look externally different, and also internally we are very different. So we've found a very simple tool called IMA that gives you insight into your communication and engagement style. It is not a personality tool at all. It's not going to tell you what colour underpants you have on in 3 days, but it'll just give you an insight, and that's enough to then start to say how does that impact the way we work. So I'm going to very briefly go IMA. There is a separate video that talks about it in detail. So it's a colour-based model. It's very simple. We use it quite extensively in areas about understanding self, relationship, teams, and so on, as you see here. As I say, there is another video that's available that will describe this in some detail. This is the 4 iMA colour styles: high green, high blue, high red, and high yellow. It is all about a preference. It's not saying that you are that, but most of the time, in most situations, those are the kind of behaviours or style that you would exhibit. So that describes iMA, so that gives us the model for the distinction between people. Praxis, there was a very long list of sources that was used by Adrian to create Praxis. I'm not going through each of those. I'm not intending to talk through them. But it was a very long list of references. And Adrian's view was always there should be a freely available version of what we call project program portfolio management that people should have ready access to. And he believes that there's considerable similarity between what the professional bodies, the accreditation bodies, books and so on. It's broadly common sense, and he's put structure around it into one single framework. So what it's done now, it's split into knowledge, method, capability, maturity, and competence. So you might recognize some of those different things, standards, models, and so on, like the PMBOK, Prince2, P3M3 maturity model. All of them map into it, into what's been created with Praxis. And you can click on here so you can see he's got knowledge, method, competence, capability, maturity. It's a considerable body of work. So what does Praxis actually look like? That, just some screenshots, you can easily go and visit this. There's some screenshots. This is taking an example from some aspect of risk management. It's a hugely rich site. It's an incredible piece of work, I have to say. And it's been a pleasure working with Adrian, with somebody who's got such an in-depth knowledge of the projects world. And just as an example, you know, there is even, for example, a full capability maturity model built into it that is, again, freely available for people to use. And there is an extensive library, so just some other screenshots of what's available in there: case studies, articles, examples of templates, all sorts of things. So it's a wonderful piece of work. Now the reason, so that has given us the template in which we can apply this people-centric view onto. So the people plus the process. So let's just now start to think about how people do what we call project management. Well, they perceive it, they design it, they adopt it, deploy it, involve others, adapt it, all in different ways. So what my desire has always been to do is work out what is that people-centric view of those aspects, of particular aspects of project management look like. So let's just take one example. So risk management. So again, this is showing the ready availability of materials that you can lift and use directly from the Praxis framework. So if you look at those 4 colours that I described earlier, the high green, high blue, the high red and high yellow, each of them has got a different style, different way of working, different behaviours. They will perceive and look at risk management differently. So let's just take, what does that actually mean? So if you took if you take out of Praxis framework the aspects about the risk management plan and a simple process about how you do risk management, each of those colours views it differently. We've given the example here, but typically a high green would adopt and apply if they perceived it was of value. They would have a tendency to work in isolation in doing that particular aspect of the process. They would require time to consider and plan and so on. So the high green, when it comes to doing generally project management, we've had a particular approach to it. That each of the other colours, the red, the green and the yellow, similarly will have their own generic approach. So what we did was then say, if you took that and started looking at each of the different aspects of project management, so this is highly detailed, again, you won't be able to see this in detail, this is all freely available, we'll give you the link at the end to it. You can go and look at it and say, so if you just took that box in the top right hand corner, that's the identify stage of risk management. And you might see that there is a red, green, blue and yellow narrative. We've tried to say, well, how do each of those people do that differently? So let's dive into that point there and look at some of the detail of what's been done. So to again get maximum value, you want to reflect on your own strengths. So let's just take the example of someone being a high green. They may look at that and they might read that couple of sentences and say, yeah, that's broadly the way that I would tackle the identify part of doing risk management. Then they might look at it and say, well, the blue, the yellow and red would do it differently. They would view it differently, they would perceive it differently. I wonder in this situation, should I consider that, given the context that I'm in, is there an opportunity to modify my approach to better suit, better work in the situation? And that's what the person can do. The other use of the material we've developed is working with individuals in teams. So when you've got that one-to-one relationship, when the high green is working with the high yellow, they can talk. It's not just they need to work out what the difference is. We're creating materials that will actually say what would a typical high green and high yellow do differently. And then they can have a conversation and they can say what's the most appropriate for this point in the project or this type of project. Let's just take as an example, the high yellow may well want to go off and run workshops, bring people together, innovate, think about the opportunities as well as the threats around risk, but involve people to do it. The high green may say, well, I'll take a more structured approach, evidence-based, possibly look at old projects, analyse them, try to identify those risks. So it would be a different approach that they would take. But if the green and the yellow are working together, if they had that insight up front, they would be able to talk about a collective approach. And of course, you can apply exactly the same logic to teams. If you've got groups of people, you can talk as a team, let's say on a major project, there might be a team who are particular tasked with doing the risk identification on the project. Knowing the profile of the team would help them to talk about the best way, what types of risk will we typically tend to focus on, what's the typical process we might use, how would we typically communicate this, and talk about that now in an explicit way, which we believe has never been done before, collapsing this people and the process together. Here's an example here of an exercise around insights into risk management. Just one example, some of the questions we've had to ask. Well, why would someone do it? Who and where would people involve it? So if there's a high green again, how would they do it? What level of process? When would they do it? What quality of output would they have? So this is the kinds of questions that we asked ourselves around risk and risk management to give us an insight. Now we have created materials on the Praxis website around risk management, benefits management and stakeholder management. We've developed a lot of other material, but we've made that available now to get that review from people. So far we've had fantastic response. So is the equation correct? So is people plus process, IMA plus praxis, is it equal to 2? We'd ask you to judge. We'd very much like your feedback. What are some of the uses for this iMAPraxis initiative? I'm already working in parallel with organisations who can see huge benefits in looking, if an organisation already has process systems and tools, if this can help the adoption and practice of it within the organisation. Or at the other end, an organisation who possibly has very little system process tools, but from the beginning to create a very people-centric view, given the fact that they know people are different. So if a high green writes the risk management process, it'll be a very different process from, say, a high yellow would produce. And as I said, we're using this extensively now. The research, this is where we would really like your input. So contributing to the first phase of the research, if you visit the Praxis framework, you'll get a link to it in just a moment. At the top, across the top, there is a banner. That will take you to one page that describes in detail exactly what to do. So you complete your IMA profile, that gives us the indication about the type of colour style you are. Then it's asked you to look at some material and then to complete the survey, the last part. There is only 4 questions to the survey. First one is about your colour style, whether second question is, are you comfortable with your colour style? Is that accurate? So testing that at the same time. The third one is how accurate, when we have described, let's say, the high green, how they might do risk management, benefits management, and stakeholder management, how accurate that is. And then finally, whether you think this is an initiative worthy of support. And if it is, then there's a link to how you can get involved. So, just to finish up, There, you can go and complete the survey by visiting the Praxis framework, but we've included the link there if for some reason you can't find that. And you can join the iMAPraxis framework LinkedIn group. That's the mechanism that we'll use to talk to the group of people who are now interested in taking this initiative forward. So I hope you have enjoyed the video and you got some value out of it, and look forward to hearing from you if this is of interest and you believe that it's going to have a positive impact on the profession. Thank you very much.